Assalamu alaikum. How are you all? Hope all of you are doing good. Okay, I'm not extending my talk. First, we have to get into the topic very soon. Okay, so this is the last chapter of our grade 11 syllabus of second semester, immunity. I divided this chapter into two. So immunity part 1 and immunity part 2. It's very important in this scenario. All of you have heard about immunity. Why we are staying at home? Stay back, stay safe, stay home. Like that, we are hearing. Why? Because they told it is the only thing we can do against the COVID 19 because we have to increase our immunity by staying at home and taking care of our health because there is no medicine. So immunity, improve the immunity is the only one method to uh, prevent the coronavirus, COVID-19. Okay, so our topic is immunity. So all of you please listen and take your textbook, page number 218, and take your notebook also with you. Okay, let's begin. Immunity. Before the details of immunity, first we have to know about the WBC. What are WBC? From grade 8 we are learning about it. The white blood cells. Okay, that is the immune system or the defense mechanism inside our body. A lot of characters are there inside our body as physically also and physiological also. Physical means externally, our skin, our hair, all are a kind of defense. But when even though when these microbes are entering into our body will make a defense system. That the main defense immunity system inside our body is WBC or white blood cell, or otherwise we are calling it as leukocytes. Okay, so actually the white blood cells are 7,000 per cubic millimeter of the blood, and these all are originate in our bone marrow. Okay, and they retain their nucleus. RBC has no nucleus, red blood cell has no nucleus, but white blood cells have nucleus. Already we saw this in our lab also. Last time I showed in the microscope. Do you remember that one? Okay, so the white blood cell do not necessarily function in the bloodstream, but all use the blood circulation as a means of reaching specific body organs or tissue. Understand? That means it is not showing the oxygen capacity, oxygen carrying content is RBC. Like that, the blood uh, is not showing the specific function for WBC as the blood. But what is the use of that blood by WBC? WBC using the blood as a transport system to reach the location of infection. Okay, and most of the WBC leave the bloodstream by migrating between the cells of capillary cells, capillary walls, and it can be and it is very short lived. And mainly the leukocytes are two types: lymphocytes and phagocytes. The spellings are very important, you have to write and learn. Okay, lymphocytes are globular nucleus, but phagocytes are lobed nucleus. It is not a globular, it is not a round shaped nucleus. That is, when we are looking through the microscope, this is the characteristic feature which can be identified by lymphocytes and phagocytes. And there are many kind of response to the infection from our body. Some are specific and some are non-specific. Non-specific response of infection is one kind of inflammations. That means if something happened to our hand, or by breaking or cutting or just hitting on somewhere, that part will be little bit reddish in color and it will be swollen. That is known as inflammation, the swollen condition of our body part. Okay, or sometimes it is painful and the color will change or warmth will be there. that is known as inflammation. So inflammation is the initial rapid, that means suddenly it happens, localized response, only that area it will be affected, response the tissues make to damage, whether due to cut, scratch, bruising, or deep wound. Okay, and it is triggered by damaged cell and which release alarm chemicals including histamines and prostaglandins. Those all are hormones or any chemicals which are produced in response to this infection inside our body. And the two pictures I gave here, the phagocytic cell of body's defense mechanism by the WBC by so these phagocytes are again we are calling it as monocytes and neutrophils. Okay, so these neutrophils are actually 60% of the white blood cells are known as neutrophils. So the neutrophils and macrophages are what? Phagocytes. Okay, and lymphocytes, we told that they are two types, T cells and B cells. We will study in detail. You just go through this picture. From the picture, it is very clear what is happening when an infection occurs. Here are some important terminology related to this chapter. Okay, so the what are the leukocytes? Leukocytes means WBC. From this word, the leukemia, the cancer of blood, came. Okay, and the lymphocytes are actually what it's our WBC, and one more is that what is that? Phagocytes. Okay, lymphocytes are again divided into T cells and B cells, and phagocytes are monophils and monocytes and neutrophils. Again, there are basophils and neutrophils are there, but not much details you need it. Okay, and this antigen antibody, any foreign materials that enter into our body is known as antigen. And antibody means in response to the antigen our body will produce a protein that is known as antibody. And so there is a very important other word is known as self and non self. That means self is actually a kind of protein that do not trigger an immune response in the body's own immune system, but it is happening there. But this the same self, if go to another person or another organism, this self will change into non self. Self means our own. Our body has a special kind of protein that is known as self. And non self means it is not our body product, another microbes product. Understand? So antigen, antibody, self, and non self is important. And the glycoprotein identified cells are known as major histocompatibility complex antigen. That is also a kind of protein, glycoprotein. This antigen and antibodies are actually a glycoprotein. The details of protein we have learned in semester 1. So here in this picture, it's very clear how the lymphocytes are act or react to a infection happens. So the stem cell or bone marrow cell divided, and it forms a I marked as a 2A, 2B, 2C, like that one. Okay. So the one B cells is means from the bone marrow itself it matured and make up B cells. But T cells, that what happened? It will go to the thymus gland of a human body. Thymus gland is seen in the chest part, and that chest part, thymus gland, this cells that is called T cells will increase their size and they mature. After that, it will come to the lymph nodes to get ready to react against any bacteria or virus or fungus or plasma or anything. Okay, it have wait for that. But B cells are producing, and as well as the maturation also happened in the bone marrow. That's why I made 2A and 2B. 2B is the B cells and 2A is the T cells. Okay, T cells produced in bone marrow but matured in the thymus gland, and it will wait in the lymphocytes to fight against the microbes. And why this come to the thymus? Because These T cells, otherwise maybe it may make us non-self reaction inside our body. In order to avoid that, all the T cells are collected and stored in the thymus cells to mature. After that, it will collect in the and store in the lymphocytes. So the T cells and lymphocytes, how they are involving in the defense mechanism that we explain here. Some of the roles we wrote here. B lymphocytes completely matured in the bone marrow, I told, isn't it? And the T cells in the thymus gland. And after recognition and binding to a specific antigen, antigen means foreign body, okay? So this proliferate into the plasma cell, and that secretes antibodies into the bloodstream. Antibody is the glycoprotein. Who is producing this one? B lymphocytes. Okay, so this is known as a humoral immunity, and these T cells and B cells have one type of surface receptor, and each lymphocytes can recognize only one type of antigen. So from that we will understand which antigen came to which antibody. That's why the medicines we can find it and act only on that disease. Understand? Because it is specific in action. In this picture, it is very clear that each step they wrote with the description. Okay, so in the page number 223 I referred here because of this picture in this slide, the picture is not clear. In your textbook it is very clear. Okay, so each one it is there, so you just go through the textbook and you will understand the idea. In the first step, antigen binds to the antibody, and each step is named by different names also. Okay, and the second step, what will happen? The antigen take up by the endocytosis, and after that third step, macrophages engulf antigen by endocytosis, and that stage is known as antigen presentation. After that, the fourth stage, T lymphocytes bind to macrophages and antigen is activated. It is called activated helper T lymphocytes. In before itself, I told T lymphocytes are not directly uh, acting in the defense. It is cell mediated structure. That means it helps someone to do its function. It directly cannot do anything. Okay, so the fifth stage is known as activated helper T lymphocytes bind to B lymphocytes with the same antigen expressed immediately. B lymphocyte is activated. So activated B lymphocytes in the fifth stage enter into the sixth stage. So rapidly it forms a plasma cells by mitosis. And the seventh stage is very important. Some activated B lymphocytes and T lymphocytes survive in the body as memory cell. That is very important. Memory cells. Okay, and that memory cells are able to initiate a more speedy response in the event of reinfection. Finally, the antibodies overcome antigen. That means it neutralizes, and by this one the body will fight against that microbes and it will evade from our body and we will be safe. Understand? So the first stage, just attaching the with the antigen with the lymphocyte, B lymphocyte. After that it cannot be acted, but who is helping for it? T lymphocytes. T lymphocytes activate the B lymphocyte and that multiplicate, but uh, T lymphocytes directly cannot attach with the lymphocytes. So what it will do first? It should be attached with the macrophages first. Okay, so macrophages is also a kind of WBC. Understand? So the lymphocytes and T lymphocytes and B lymphocytes are lymphocytes. Macrophages and neutrophils are the phagocytes. That these four are different elements of WBC. Okay, so these 7 steps are very, very important. You have to learn with the help of this diagram. So the significance of white blood cell counts in blood is very important to identify the person is ill or healthy. So that's why when we are sick, the doctor prescribed us for the blood checking, so they can find if the WBC is more, means our body is infected with some antigens. Okay, and sometimes without reason there will be WBC more. That means maybe they are blood cancer patient. Okay, so that this the amount of WBC inside our body normally it is 4,500 to 10,000 mu liter. Okay, I couldn't write, so that's why I wrote in the brackets. Okay, so that is the amount of WBC is important to identify a person is sick or not. That's why the doctor are prescribing to check the blood. Myasthenia gravis is a condition inside our body. It's a sick condition, illness of our body. How it is a autoimmune disorder. I told if an antigen come to our body automatically do a defense mechanism by producing the antibodies, isn't it? But in myasthenia gravis, what will happen? It is an autoimmune disease. That means our immunity is acting against our immunity. So it is a failure to distinguish the self from non-self. That means they are thinking our immunity needs to produce an antibody, so it is destructing our immunity. Okay, so sometimes it makes the muscle weakness, so they feel fatigue when they are doing work. Maybe it's a small part of muscle. Our body is full of muscle. Even the eyelid is a muscle, contracting and relaxing, isn't it? So when we are doing a lot of work, they feel fatigue and they have to take rest. Then they can recover soon. And sometimes it causes a tumor of thymus gland. So the doctors prescribe to cut the thymus gland or remove the thymus gland in order to prevent any other case of malignancy. Okay, so it is a autoimmune disorder. To distinguish, that means defect of distinguish self from non-self. Once more, just told about the role of B cells and T lymphocytes, a flow chart given here. Okay, so how it is happening, so that you have to look in your textbook again, page number 225. Very clear picture is there. This you have to copy into your notebook, the flow chart to explain about the role of B cells and T cells to produce the defense mechanism or immunity inside our body. Okay. Here are some questions at the end of this portion. Okay, the terms antigen, antibody, self, and non-self also you have to know. Okay, so with the help of a flow chart, explain the role of T and B lymphocytes. This T and B should be lymphocyte. Don't forget about it. Okay, and write the macrophagocytes also. Okay, monocytes, neutrophils, basophils, like that. Okay, and what is the significance of a blood cell count, huh? And what is myasthenia gravis. Okay, these questions you have to write in your notebook and study well. Okay, so stay home, stay safe. Masalama. Inshallah, we can see you on the next video. Bye. Until then, signing off.